Welcome to the Property Management Mastermind Show with your host, Brad Larson. Brad owns one of the fastest growing property management companies in San Antonio, Texas. This podcast is for property managers by property managers. You'll hear from industry-leading professionals on best practices, new ideas, success stories, and lessons learned. This is your opportunity to learn about the latest industry buzz surrounding property management, as well as tips and strategies to improve your business. Now here's your host, Brad Larson.
This episode of the Property Management Mastermind Show is sponsored by Mark Cunningham of Grace Property Management. Now, Mark has created some amazing products for property management companies. We have implemented his systems and his business income streams into our business here, and I can personally recommend them. If you're in the property management business, I encourage you to visit their website, as you will definitely find a product that will improve your business. I know Mark personally, and just a small investment to pick up one of his golden nuggets could earn you a return many times over. To learn more, go to propertymanagementsystem.org. Again, propertymanagementsystem.org. And to get a 10% discount on all of Mark's products, use the promo code BRAD, B-R-A-D. In today's episode, I have James Alderson here from Pros Assessments. It's onsitepros.com. And what they do is they do inspections. And James's team, they built a call center and they help do third-party inspections for us. And James is here in studio today so we can talk about this. And we're going to go all through the uses of how to make best applications on these particular inspections, some of the costs, and some of the things that you could do if you don't have a pros inspection company near you. And so it's going to be a good interview with James, and let's kick it off. And James, thanks for joining us here on another episode of the Property Management Mastermind Show. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Brad. Thanks for the invite. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm super excited to have you here. And we're going to talk today about some pros assessments. And so I want you to give us a quick intro, who you are, what you do.
Okay. James Alderson, and I actually am a property manager just like you. Not near as big as you are, but but I do manage, my wife and I manage a few doors in and around San Antonio. And I started On-Site Pros basically as a result of my own need. Wasn't meant to be a business, didn't want to start a new company. We made enough money, if you will, made a living, if you will, at property management. But just wanted inspections off my plate, and I didn't want them to affect my bottom line. So I hired some guys to do that for me, and it kind of expanded into a business that we've taken pretty much into about 14 cities across the United States.
14 cities, that's excellent. Yeah. And I'm glad you used the term inspections too, because a lot of people were fearful of using that term, thinking that it indicates some sort of licensed, like a real estate commission inspector doing inspections.
Exactly.
And, people call them assessments, people call them periodicals, people call them different things. But I've had inspectors tell me, no, go ahead and you call it an inspection. Yeah. Even though you may not be checking the light sockets, it's still an inspection.
It is an inspection. Yeah, AC companies come in and do an inspection on your AC. Plumbers do an inspection on the plumbing, and we're inspecting the property, so to speak.
Yeah, and I love the service because what you're doing is you're sending in, you have a call center, you're organizing for an inspector to go to the home, and they get into the home with the tenant or without the tenant there, depends on the situation. We'll talk all through that. And then they do their 60, 80, 100 photos, however big the home is, and they put that in a documentation to what they see. And then the documentation comes to the portfolio manager, property manager, and it's in full color. And the reports are just amazing. So I'm really excited with the service. We use it in a lot of different ways. And this is where you and I can talk about some of the uses.
Okay.
So one of the things that we first do is when we get a new owner, we do a pros assessment. And so our team will contact your team, and your team will contact that particular new owner. If they're living there, they'll go ahead and arrange for a quick inspection. But typically we want that home to be vacant. Okay, so that's what I want to make sure we're clear on.
Right.
Is once the home is vacant and we have a brand new home in our possession, day one of management on a vacant home, we send your team over there for an assessment. And a lot of good things come of that, right? Wouldn't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Brad, one of the things that we won't do is go into a home where it's not, if it's occupied, we won't go in there unless the tenant is available for us to set an appointment with. because we don't want the $10,000 ring that was sitting on the dining room table now gone, and I'm the only, or our company has been the only one that that has been there. But a vacant property is ideal for us, obviously for you as well, when you take it over. But if you do take on a new property with somebody already in the home, we'll set up that appointment with the tenant.
Yeah, we do that on every standard new agreement. It's in our management agreements that as soon as we get a home to sign up or an owner to sign up with us, the first thing we do is once that home is vacant, assuming we have a vacant home, we send your assessment team over there. So then that gives us the benchmark of what that home looks like. Yep. Because you may have to make repairs, right? You may have to do something to the home, and then the tenant and or the owner may object to that repair, saying, you know, we've all heard it. You know, that was there when I moved in.
Right.
You know, and then we go back to the pictures.
And you may not even want that property.
Correct.
When you get there and do the assessment on it. It may not be fit into your portfolio, you know, so that's another piece of that.
We always envision the make-readies as a big issue. So the new owners, they hand you a home, it's vacant, their last tenant left, and we go to the home, and it's maybe not a quality home, and we go to the owner and say, well, we're going to have to do $5,000 in work. And, of course, the owner doesn't believe you.
Right, never.
and they never believe you until you send them the actual pros assessment and say, look at the amount of work we need to do. And they see the things that are wrong, and they see all the good quality photos in there, and they know that it's a third-party assessment.
Right.
And that's the one thing we got to stress is you guys are neutral.
Exactly. Tenants always feel like we have a vested, as property managers, they feel like we have a vested interest in their money. And I mean, when it comes to the security deposit I'm talking about, so that takes that away. You know, as a property manager, you know what? I didn't do that. I didn't do that assessment. I had a third party do that for me. And when it comes to a legal standpoint, you know, legal, we've had cases that actually have gone to court. Attorneys have taken our report with them, and the judge has said, so the move-in was done by a third party? Yes, Your Honor. The move-out was done by a third party? Yes, Your Honor. Case closed.
Yeah.
It's just that simple for these attorneys that have to go to bat for us.
I love the neutrality it offers us as managers because we are dealing with judges, we are dealing with owners, we're dealing with tenants. And of course, we want to stay out of the courtroom.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the techniques that we've been really able to perfect is when we do that security deposit itemization at the end, we use your assessment as a reference.
Yeah, I use
just like a book report.
That's right. I use it at my own property management company. You know, maybe I missed something, Mr. Tenant, but I'm keeping $1,000 of your money. Here's my move in. Here's my move out. Tell me what I'm missing here. You know what I'm saying? If they see it, then those are disputes, hopefully, and our goal is for them to go away.
Yeah, and that's been genius for us. So the other thing we want to talk about how we're using these pros assessments are the renewals and the periodics. And let's take one at a time.
Okay.
So the renewals, you know, our system, and then you're probably very similar, is a certain time frame after that initial lease, let's say 9 months or 10 months, or you know, some people do it 3 months and 9 months. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to skin this cat.
Yep.
And let me dive into this for you real quick as a good technique for all the management company owners out there is in our management agreement, we give the owners an option to choose 1 or 2 assessments per year. They physically have to check a box that says, I want 1 at X cost, or I want 2 every 6 months at X cost for every inspection. And what that does, by making the owners choose, is they no longer can make the assumption that you're doing an inspection daily.
Right.
What do you mean you're not going to drive by my home every day? I can't. That wasn't in the agreement.
Right.
Well, you can go back to that and say, well, no, you chose for us to do 1 assessment every year at X cost. Here it is. You chose the box.
Sure.
So that's a good technique to consider for management company owners when they're getting renewals.
Absolutely. That owner, obviously we have owners that we manage one door for and owners that we manage multiple. Those that are multiples, they think they're the only piece of the pie that we manage. And so they make those kinds of demands on us. But you make a good point.
Yeah, now if we're managing a frat house, we'll do a weekly inspection.
Sure.
We don't have any of those, right?
Right.
You know, anything more than 2 times a year, to me, seems a bit intrusive.
I agree.
And I even think 2 times a year is borderline intrusive. That's my opinion.
Owners look at things differently. We can go in feasibly according to our TAR form. I know we're not talking necessarily just to Texas, but in our Texas form, we can go in whenever we want to or whenever the owner chooses to. But I'm with you on that as far as our policies and procedures, we only do that once a year.
Right. We don't want to be overly intrusive there. So I think once a year is perfect, because if you're going past that, now you're running the risk of not getting a renewal.
Exactly.
Because a tenant's going to feel irritated that you're coming in every 6 months to check on them. And then let's all look in the mirror out there. I mean, if you're looking in the mirror, would you want to have to deal with inspections every 6 months?
That's a good benchmark to have too, as well.
Yeah. So the renewals we do, month 10, somewhere in there, we get a renewal inspection done. The inspector will go meet the tenant, take pictures of the home, and we often have them document everything they see, to include, I'm knocking on my table, to include animals.
Yep.
That's a big part. So when they catch the kitty litter box underneath the kitchen sink,
yeah,
because tenants will sometimes hide things when they know there's inspection going on.
You bring up a good point, because we teach our technicians, we call them, to stay away from the inspector word, but we teach them to they can hide the bowl, they can hide the pet, but they can't hide the stuff in the backyard or the ring around the fence, where the dog has tripped around there. So they watch for things like that, and actually evidence of a pet has been on the property.
Yeah, and that's very important come renewal time, because you may not want to renew somebody if you see pet damage and you look back at the lease. Wait a minute, there's no pet on the lease agreement.
Yeah.
And that just brings up a sticky mess that nobody wants to deal with. Do you go back to them and make them do some sort of pet deposit or a pet fee? Do you just straight up kick them out?
No pun intended there, sticky mess, is it?
No pun intended. The other part is, what if you get an owner that wants to evict? Now you're evicting over this alleged animal,
right?
And that's just messy.
Yeah.
Meaning literally you try to go to a judge and try to evict somebody over an animal. It gets a little difficult. Some judges will say, nope, I'm not, I need to see concrete proof. And other judges will say, we'll just make them pay a pet deposit and move on, or a pet fee and move on. They're not going to just straight up evict. So it's not as easy as that, just to kick somebody out for a pet.
Right.
You can give them a non-renewal. That's easy. That's cut and dry, especially in almost every state. But, for them to force them out on some sort of eviction, let's say they had a 2-year lease agreement, right? And then the periodical's done year 1, month 12 of a 2-year lease, and you find a pet.
Yep.
Well, it's not an easy deal to kick somebody out.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and now you can transition, if you will, down into the periodic inspection, because that all ties in together. A periodic inspection does some of the same stuff, in that we go in and our job as property managers is to protect the owner and their property. The asset is not the property itself. The asset actually is the tenant. So we want to protect the owner from the tenant, to make sure that they're not doing anything to the property that they're not supposed to be doing, i.e. they're not changing the air conditioner filter.
A big one.
We check the air conditioner filters to make sure that the tenant's doing their job, and our leases say that they're supposed to do that. We also make sure that there's no trampoline or baby pool or swing set that the tenant has put in on the property. Those are all risks to our owners, and an insurance company will cancel you in a heartbeat if they know that those things are there.
Yeah, we've had that. I got a story for you there. We've been called by USA, one of the big insurance companies, before, and they said, we've discovered a trampoline in one of your backyards, and we have to physically go and potentially even remove it for them. We almost had to do that last year, remove a trampoline out of the backyard of a tenant that was occupying the property.
Yep, I had the same thing happen.
Imagine how uncomfortable that is.
Yeah, exactly.
Luckily, the tenant did comply and removed it, but that's what happens if the owner's insurance gets canceled because of that.
Well, and I've got a picture of one of the homes that we inspected, and it's actually out there at Canyon Lake, and a trampoline is actually wedged into the corner of a fence that is a wrought iron fence with the spears up on it. So you can only imagine that's an accident waiting to happen. So we're there to protect the owner's investment.
Yeah, that could have been a major lawsuit. Tenant hurts himself on a property with a trampoline. Yeah, it's not allowed, but still, I mean,
they do stupid things
correct,
sometimes.
correct. Somebody gets hurt, and
Yeah.
you get attorneys involved, and then you get big insurance involved,
Mm,
and that's where it turns real ugly.
Smoke alarms. Another thing we check is smoke alarms to make sure they're functioning. And smoke alarms are a big deal. The fire code and insurance code both tell us, Brad, that those things last 8 to 10 years. In other words, they start dysfunctioning or malfunctioning after 8 to 10 years, to the tune of about 70% of them will go away. Or just the sensors on them just quit working for whatever reason. We literally take the smoke alarm off the wall or off the ceiling, check the date, take a photo of the date to let you know as a property manager also, hey, in a couple of years, 2 years, 3 years, how many ever years it is, Mr. Owner, you're going to be looking at a replacement of all 7 of your smoke alarms in this house. So it gives them an idea, too, of how much money they're going to be spending down the road.
And we've adopted that policy and put it into our management agreement up front that if we do find the smoke detector that is older than 8 years old, we'll go ahead and replace it.
Absolutely.
We're not waiting around, because the next time you get out there, it could be 11 years old.
Sure. And I want to add to that, if I could. We have some property managers that say, don't even mess with the smoke alarms. I've got a handyman that handles that, and we actually will do that for them. But here's my comeback on that, and I think you and I have had this conversation, in that if you do that yourself, I'm okay with that. But let me explain what the risk to you as a property manager is, and to your owner. If we go out and do an assessment one day, and you get it the next day, and you contact your handyman the next day, and he can't get out there till the next day, you've got a period of time there, and I could go on and on with that, because we may not even look at the report the next day. Does that make sense? So that period of time that you had an assessment done, and something happens, God forbid, a judge is going to look at that. Hey, you knew this then, and you didn't address it until then. Something's could happen there, and we don't want that to happen. So we have actually talked property managers into utilizing that piece of our business, because it is such a vital. Nothing trumps death.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you go to court, we obviously don't want you to go to court, but we're trying to keep you from that.
And that's key too, is make sure we're code compliance.
Absolutely.
We have pretty strict codes here, as far as, maybe not compared to some other states, but we do have strict codes as far as what we have to do. All the keys have to be rekeyed. There has to be security devices on every single exterior door. All the smoke detectors have to be updated within a certain time frame. And then those types of things we'll be able to catch in a periodical inspection.
Yep.
So imagine this. Your guy goes out, takes pictures of the back door, and wait a minute, there's no keyless deadbolt.
Keyless deadbolt, yeah.
Whoa, okay, well, we need to get that
In
fixed
Texas,
right away.
we have to have that.
We have to have
That's
that.
it.
We have to have a keyless deadbolt or some sort of third locking device.
That's
Even if it's a ring bolt, we still have to have that on that door, and sometimes that gets missed.
And a door viewer.
Correct.
If there's not a window in the
That's
door.
right, especially when we're taking over homes that have a tenant existing in it.
Oh,
You
big
know,
time.
imagine the owner who's self-managing and says, I'm fed up and done, hire a management company. Management company does a third-party assessment,
Yep.
goes out there, and then finds, wait, there's no security devices. There's no peepholes in the doors that are required. And then when we checked, all the smoke alarms were 20 years old. And we automatically get all that stuff done.
Right.
Through your service or through another service, I would recommend getting it done. My only concern, and not a concern, is advice, is get that thing documented.
Absolutely.
So your service
Yep.
documents that.
That's right.
Okay. The same thing, we use that. And then also on the rekeying stuff, we use Mr. Rekey,
Yep.
which is also a big franchise.
Yep.
And they document that. That's the point I want to make. So there are a lot of owners out there, management company owners, or even self owners that do the handyman thing, the guy off the corner thing.
Yep.
That guy doesn't document what he did. And so imagine if there's a fire, right? Fire happens at a house, and this turns into some crazy lawsuit. And it goes to a judge, and the judge says, well, we don't believe that you changed the smoke detectors out. And you show them an invoice from a pro's assessment or a Mr. Rekey and says, no, right here on 16 June 2017, the smoke detectors were changed out, the locks were changed, and it's a byline invoice that looks beautiful as anything. That's going to keep you out of trouble more than anything else.
Time and date stamped also.
Time and date stamped.
Yeah,
That's a big part.
For the photo. It really is. Back to the periodic inspection, I would like to share with you a story. One of the reasons one particular company in San Antonio came to us and said, we want this service to come on board in our company. And I don't mind telling you who it was. It was Steve Foster. He actually told us that we could tell this story because it happened in his business.
And to interrupt you, Steve is the past president of NARPM.
Correct.
And about as solid as a guy as anybody will know.
And does things by the book.
Correct.
And in this particular house, I'll tell you from the start to the finish, the CPS, or our City Public Service electric company,
yep.
Came out because there was brownouts in this particular community, and they couldn't figure out why, or the neighbors had called. And so anyway, the CPS came out, couldn't figure it out, so they called supervisor. He came out, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. So he told them to shut the whole community down. And this whole block, or several blocks of homes, no electricity except this one house. And it hummed and glowed at this house. So anyway, long story short, the guys went in, and the police called Steve and asked him to come over and let him in the house because they needed to check it out. When they went in, they found that a hole had been drilled through the foundation, bypassed the meter, went straight to the pole, put in high-intensity lights, knocked out walls, put in a sprinkler system inside the house, and had about 160 marijuana grow plants inside this house. Never was occupied by a tenant for 2 years. Now, here's what was the shocker, and why Steve actually called us up, is the fact that he didn't have a reason to go to that house. The guy had paid his rent on time every month, had never had a maintenance issue. There was no problems. There was no reason to go visit the home. He fixed everything if there was to fix. So anyway, when it was all said and done, there was about $40,000 to $50,000 worth of damage to that house that they had to remodel. Whenever, as a matter of fact, we got the NARPM group to go over there and clean it up. I'm just kidding about that.
Right. Yeah.
Take up all the residue, if you will. But anyway, no. But Steve's a big advocate of ours now, because it just to go in and periodically check. So you're not going to go set up a grow house in a house, a rental property, or any other home if you know that you're going to get checked up on every 4, 5, 6 months. So we as property managers have that responsibility. I think
what I've seen before too is owners listen to their property managers and or their real estate professionals doing desktop inspections. Right? Have you ever heard this term?
I haven't.
Well, imagine the owner who owns a home and somebody's managing it, and they call up the manager, and the manager says, "Yep, over the phone, I just walked past that home yesterday. I drove right by it, and it looks great." Well, how do they know? How does the owner know you actually did a walkthrough of the home?
Right.
Well, a pro's assessment's a pretty darn good way to show that you did it.
Saying. Yeah,
you get a lot of management companies that will
pencil
try to
whip it.
Pencil whip it, correct. Because if it is just pencil,
sure.
I mean, if it is just a form that they fill out,
right.
they can pencil whip that thing up in a hurry.
Absolutely.
Or if they're just talking to their owners via phone, they say, "Oh yeah, I did walk it. It looks great. I just drove by yesterday. It looks fine. Everything's good. I walked it last week, and I talked to the tenant."
Sure.
Well, they can make up that stuff, but you cannot fudge a pro's assessment. That's as concrete as any.
Sure.
And that's a good segue to talk about the move-out process, because we employ you guys to help with our move-out process. And here's what we do, and you can chime in, is once a tenant vacates, we immediately order a pro's assessment to be done, a pro's inspection. And so the lockbox code is given to your company. That information goes to the inspector. The inspector gets out there ASAP, whatever that could be, within the next day or two.
Yeah.
So we get
those take priority, by the way, over any other.
Of course.
Because we want you to get it re-rented. We want you to have that documentation.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought you were being joking.
No. We really do take priority in those that take a priority. Move-outs take a priority over any other assessments.
Well, that's good, because that'll help us turn it.
Move-ins and move-outs, I should say.
Perfect.
Because move-in, you want to know that it's getting done because the tenant's moving in tomorrow or the next day or whatever. Those take priority over any of these periodics where there's a tenant occupied the home already.
Yeah, the move-out inspection is about as gold as they come, because that's going to be one of the things that keep us out of trouble. So what we do, and some of the techniques that we employ here, is once that move-out inspection is being done or is being done along the same time frame, the same portfolio manager or property manager is going to go walk the home, and I have every one of my managers do a 5 to 10 minute move out video. They take their little iPhone, they do a move out video from front to back of that home. Let's say it's 10 minute long, and they can zoom in on any of the issues that are high value, because they are the one preparing that security deposit itemization. So they are the ones that have to justify those charges in pictures from the pros assessment and the video from their iPhone, which goes into YouTube. It's listed as private, and it stays there forever. And so when we do our security deposit itemizations, we reference the pros inspection with the inspector's name, right, to make it look like a book report, and the date and time that the inspection was done in our itemization letter. And along the same time, we put the link to our YouTube video in there. So now, in writing, the tenant has a letter in hand that shows, here's the pros assessment, the details of it, here's our link to our YouTube video, and then that's going to be the things that keep us from getting in trouble.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the move-outs are a big part.
You got double dip in there. You're protecting yourself multiple times. That's
well, the
awesome.
portfolio managers, I feel they have to see the home.
Sure,
they
absolutely.
have to see the home in person at some point. So I think that move-out time frame is the best time for them to see the home. And with the video they do, they always have a record of it, which also helps us get vendors in there to do the make-ready.
Sure.
Because the vendors, if they can watch the 10-minute video, and they know they have to bring paint, and they know they have to fix a toilet, and they know they have to do something and something and something, they'll bring the supplies before they ever have to go to Home Depot or Lowe's. They'll bring the supplies with them before they go to the home. So there's just no bad thing about doing the videos.
You make a good point about sending that to vendors, because what I do in my property management business is actually take the pros report and send it to my vendor. And in the report, it actually has a summary of items that need to be addressed or need to be looked at, and he can look through that summary and get a more detailed approach of it looking through the report. But that summary is basically his assessment of what he needs to do and how he needs to take care of it, and what my maintenance guy, I should say, what vendors he needs to get over there and take care of.
Good stuff. Let's take a quick 2-second break.
Yep.
Today's show has been sponsored by Virtually Incredible, providing tenant screening services, call center services, and video production services to property managers. You may also visit them at virtuallyincredible.com. And we're back. Thanks for that quick break. So what James and I want to talk about now is we want to talk about some of the costs. I mean, everyone's going to ask, what's the simple, basic question? How much does it cost?
Right. You know, and a good question, but I think what property managers want to know more than what the cost is how can I get it paid for? And you guys, and I say you guys because many property managers that we've done business with wanted the same result that I wanted. They wanted the reports done. They wanted them off their plate, but they didn't want them to affect their bottom line. So I will tell you that our national price is basically in the $100 range. So we're not, overkill. I'm not making a lot of money. I don't want you to think that I built this company and make a lot of money. I didn't. I built it so I could be a better property manager. And then as a result of that, others have wanted to be better property managers as well and stay out of court and all that stuff. So the cost is there, but more important than the cost, I think, is how do I pay for it? How do I get my owners to pay for it? We actually have a pros guarantee that I will say that owners have never seen this type of report ever before. They don't typically get 40, 60, 80 pages of their home, and when they do get that, it's pretty much a no-brainer. They love the service. They love you as a property manager. They've entrusted you to manage their property and expect you to do the right thing. And so when they get a bill for $99, or let me back up and say, if you called up one of our owners, if I called up one of my owners and said, hey, I need to spend $100, they're going to back off or ask you all kinds of questions. Why, why this, why that? But if you go out and do the report, send them the report along with the invoice, and let them actually see what they're getting for the value, for the price that they're paying. That's the pros guarantee. Go out there, let us do your job. You be the manager of your own company. Don't let your owner be manager of your company. If you know what I'm saying. That's one of my pet peeves with property management, in that we got an owner that we have managed 10 properties for him, and he wants to think that he's the manager of our business. And I used to be that way, and so I can say that as a property manager, I never did like that because it always made me feel intimidated about his properties. But anyway, I've gotten past all that, and so now with the Pros Guarantee, you send us out. We'll do the report, send you the report and the invoice, and forward it to the owner. If the owner calls you up and Brad says, and I think you and I have had this conversation early on, if your owner calls you up and says, Brad, I don't like it, don't want it, didn't order it, I ain't paying for it. And even if he says, and we've all heard this one, I thought that's what I pay you for, we will take care of it. Just tell us about it, write it off. You can't convince him that product is worth the $100 or whatever the price is in your area that it takes to convince him. Let me know. I'll write it off. And just do us one favor. 2 favors, actually. 1, don't ever send us to that property again.
Fair.
And number 2 is fire that owner because he doesn't deserve your services.
That's right.
So
one of the things that we want to talk about too, along the same lines, along the cost issue, is potential ways to defer that to owners and tenants. We can talk about all kinds of creative ways.
All kinds, yeah.
All kinds.
You guys have come up with many, and
there's some, yeah.
I created a wheel, what I call the wheel of freedom, and it's a gear like a cogs on a circle, and each cog is like a fee that needs to be charged. And or can be charged to offset those costs that owners think that we're supposed to be doing inspections or doing those assessments, what have you. So each one of the cogs of those wheels, I'll get you. I wish I had a copy of it with me. I probably do in the truck, and I can get you one. But there's admin fees that we have never charged. Property managers and at the apartment complexes have had admin fees forever. And I remember, 30 years ago when I got my first apartment, or 40 years ago, however long it was. I don't even want to tell you how long it's going to be. But when I got my first apartment, I remember paying a $25, fee for just admin. And those have gone up astronomically now. Yeah. I heard one guy tell me that he paid $150 for an admin fee just the other day. We don't talk about fees necessarily, what people need to charge, but charge, at least use it. If you're not going to, we don't want to tell you what to charge, but at least use that to your benefit to get some things done. And like the assessments or other
the cost of these can be deferred. I mean, if the business owner can come up with a creative way to potentially charge the tenant and or charge the owner. And here's a good one. So what we do is we have a 3-tier pricing model, and in our first 2 tiers, we make the owner pay for that initial assessment once we take over their new home, their home. Okay, we make them pay for this initial inspection. In the big plan, our 3rd level, our highest level plan, we carry that cost. So it's an incentive for them to take on the bigger plan.
Sure.
So we eat the cost, but we're getting them into our bigger plan.
Sure. Yep.
So there's all kinds of ways to skin this cat. And we can spend a whole nother episode talking about this.
Exactly.
So one of the things that we're going to hear, of course, is, well, James, I don't have a Pros in my market. There's going to be a lot of those because they're only in 14 states, correct?
Correct. Well, we're actually only in 7 states, but 14 cities.
14 markets.
Yeah, 14 markets, yeah. We're in Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. We're in Baltimore, Maryland, South Carolina. We just opened up Raleigh-Durham, and we are in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We're in Tampa, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, and getting ready to open up Montgomery, Alabama. We're in Phoenix, Arizona, and all across Texas. Texas is kind of where we started. We're in San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth. And 5 of those, yes. I think
so. Let's talk about. So what if there's no Pros?
If there's not,
and I got a couple of things I want to bring in here. So if there's no Pros, there's a couple of things to do, and I'm going to speak for you on this, and you can chime in.
Sure.
You could bring a Pros company to your market,
right?
And talk about that.
We are expanding as fast as we can. We have had, we go to the NARPM conventions and make ourselves known, and we're trying to brand the On-Site Pros company. And so when we're there, we get all kinds of people from all over the place wanting us in their cities. So if there's a market there, we would like to be there for sure. But it takes about 800 to 1,000 doors for us to sustain an individual in an area. In addition to that, if you're in a major metroplex and there's a lot of opportunity there, we want to be there as well. And what we have done is not necessarily franchise, but we have licensed individuals because we want to take care of the back end stuff. We do all the invoices, we do all the scheduling. All an individual needs to do basically for licensing is take care of the marketing for our company and also make sure the jobs get done.
And let's not skip over one part there. So I'll give you some full disclosure, and you know this from our history. We've worked together for a number of years, and I've gone up and down and sideways and left, right? As far as at some point you were doing everything, and then we insourced and you did nothing for us, right? And then at some point you did more for us.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what happened, and I'll tell the listeners, is we thought we were going to be super smart and insource it. That's what we were thinking. Well, we got so many inspections that are going to pros, we're just going to go ahead and do those in-house ourselves. Sure. And what people need to understand why we brought it back to you forever and ever and ever is the scheduling. The scheduling is a nightmare of an animal.
It is.
And if you think that it's not, go do it for a little while and then come back and tell me something.
Right.
Because the alternative, if there's no pros, is they can go get an inspection software.
Sure.
But finding the somebody to do the scheduling and finding somebody reliable who's been screened and who's the good type of a person who will go into a tenant's home, that's the tough part.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
That's like inspection software.
And when you lose them, or they find another job, or they quit you, whatever, then you got to go through the whole process again. So that's kind of the nice part. If you get what I'm saying about the business, is the fact that you don't have to do all that stuff. That's on us, and we make sure those jobs get done. Sometimes we'll even take one guy out of one territory and move him to another, or to do a job, let him stay there overnight to make sure you guys are taken care of.
Good stuff. For all the folks out there that don't have a pros assessment near them, or they're in a smaller market, here's a couple techniques let's talk about. One, I would recommend you find a software. Okay, and there's several out there. There's Happy Inspector, there's Z Inspector, there's any others you can think of.
Whatever. Oh my gosh, they're everywhere.
There's like 10.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because we built the first app for this business, and then about 8 months after we were in, then all the inspection apps came out that later on, and which is kind of interesting. But I'm kind of like you, Brad. If you can sell me all the apps in the world, and unfortunately we're not everywhere, but we're here, and you could actually give me all the apps in the world. I still don't want to, nor do I have time to do inspections. For these guys that are out there on their own, that are, have 5, 10, 15, 25 properties, whatever, it's easy to do that when you're early and when you're doing all the business yourself, and you can make some extra money, if you will, when you do them yourself. But what you're doing is not scalable when you have the 500-600 doors like you do.
Actually, we're 700, but that's
700.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm going to shortchange you. That's awesome. I remember when you were little like me. But that's awesome. Good for you.
So, do you like any of those inspection softwares out there? Would you even?
I don't know that I would recommend any. I will tell you that we did pattern ours after our second tier of when we went and redid our app. We looked at all of them and took the best of all of them, if that makes sense. So I think Z Inspector probably is a little closer to us, and the software companies out there have their own apps built in too.
Software aside, that's for a personal decision. I like Z Inspector too.
Sure.
I thought they did a great job. Sure. But again, we came back to you for the service of it. It's not the actual inspection software we want. It's the service of getting the inspection done.
Right. And a third party. That's me.
Here's my idea for the folks out there is if you don't have a pros assessment, go find a local inspector, a state inspector that does home inspections. The big ones, the mechanicals, the $500, $600, $800 inspections. Go find one of them in their junior capacity and see if they'll do inspections for you. Give them your software. Or they're going to bring their own software. But this system of just doing a physical site inspection, basically no mechanicals, any licensed inspector right, that does the full-blown mechanical home inspection can do this for you on a smaller scale.
Sure.
So that is an alternative solution if you're not in a market with a pros assessment.
Give me the first call, though.
Yeah, I would think you'd want that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would highly recommend you guys.
Because we are looking for licensees in a lot of areas, and it may be an opportunity, you know, for the small guy out there that doesn't have enough properties to sustain himself, or wants another opportunity, and he might make a good. We do have some property managers that have taken on this as a secondary business, or hired their kids to do this business for them, and just to make sure it's all done.
Yeah, it's a great model, and your call center can work anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right, they can handle calls from Boise, Idaho to Florida.
We don't have an office; they're virtually everywhere. We got them in Tennessee, we got them in Florida, we got them in Alabama. You name it. Yeah.
So one of the things I want to talk to you about, because you're in this, you're looking at software, you're seeing the things that are coming up. You even set up a new thing called Mevo here in my office, doing a live screen. And for those that can't see, there's an additional microphone here, and he's got a camera off to the left. And so that's really neat. So obviously you're a tech guy. What are some of the dynamic changes that you're going to be seeing? What are things that are on the horizon that are going to change the world?
You know, that's a great point, because my COO and I have had this conversation. You know, we want to stay up with the times. As the times evolve, our business has changed, you know, just since you and I have been in tremendously. And we just want to make sure that we are up among with the highest in technology. And you mentioned drones a bit ago, and I think drones are probably the wave of the future for in a lot of ways.
I did an episode with my daughter a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about drones, and I envision that potentially being real, to where imagine all the infrared sensors they have, and then imagine the video cameras that they can put on there, and the cameras they can put on there.
Yep.
And you could potentially just program them to bump their way through home like a Zumba.
Absolutely.
Right? And then they could do an inspection for you at eye level.
I've been thinking about that.
It's crazy.
As a matter of fact, one of the guys that came in to be one of our techs actually went and bought a drone because I gave him the idea of going out and doing some inspections, not for homes necessarily, but he does highline wires and stuff like that. And he loved flying, and that was kind of his way of meeting that love that he had for flying. But drones is. I mean, you know, I'm like you. I could feasibly see a tenant, you know, getting the tenant to open the door, and even an iPhone will open our doors these days.
Sure.
You know, so who knows where that will go. But if a tenant say, hey, we're coming over at a certain time, open the door, we're flying in, you know. So, anyway, I don't know if it'll go that far, but
I think it will. Yeah. I mean, I know I threw the name out there, but Zumba, you ever seen one of those things that wipe your floors down?
Yeah.
Well, we have one of those things. They're annoying as heck because they bump your feet.
Yeah.
But that is really cool. They're set and forget, and they basically go all around the home, you know, doing your wood floors.
Yep.
And they're super cool.
My wife calls hers Rosie. Remember
exactly.
the Jetsons?
That's right. That's right. I remember that. And so I think that's coming as far as inspections. It may be years away, and I don't want to dwell too long on it, but that's one of the dynamic changes I can envision.
And we want to stay up on top of that technology.
Yeah. Do you see any other things coming that maybe?
Yeah, you know, that's the major one, I think, that could be. We try to keep our database, and, you know, technology is just crazy these days. I mean, once you think you've got something nailed down, something changes and something better comes out or whatever. And that's one of the things we're really zeroing in on, is making sure that our business doesn't fade away as a result of technology getting ahead of us.
I'm sure we'll see things in the future like real-time inspections, you know, to where it's posted and it goes somewhere in real time. I mean, a lot of that's here now. We may see all kinds of interesting things come up for this technique. Enhanced video, or, you know, what about infrared cameras? You know, you like what is it when you look for animal stains? It's what's that called again? The infrared light.
Yep.
So what if drones or cameras, even like our iPhone cameras, where they had some sort of filter on, where they had an infrared filter? So now we can take pictures of pet stains on the floors, and it shows up.
I'm glad you bring that up, because that's one of the things we are already testing in San Antonio. Is we have it's a LED light that's got yellow lens on it, and it will actually show up. So we're working with that testing to make sure that tenants are in compliance. If they've had a pet on the property, we know about it, great. But we don't know about the pet stain until the house sits, and without air conditioning for 3 days.
Then it shows up pretty quick.
It shows up, yeah.
Well, James, I want to thank you for coming on. This has been a great episode. Let's talk about contact. So how does somebody get in touch with you?
We have a website. It's obviously www. Don't have to put all that in anymore, but onsitepros.com. And onsite is spelled a little differently than what you might think. It's ONSIGHT, little play on words, onsitepros.com. My email address is james@onsitepros. You can contact me there. We have an 800 number, and I don't even use it enough to know what it is. but it is on the website, onsitepros.com.
Yeah, most people will find us on the website too. Sure. So that's a good deal. This has been tremendous because it really gave us a good oversight of some of the day-to-day operational sides of the entire leasing cycle and how we factor in the inspection portion. So I want to thank you again, James, for coming on. Any last-minute comments?
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure and fun to talk to you. Always good to see you, and congratulations on the size of your company. Now, that's awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, James. Take care.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Today's show is sponsored by the National Property Management Network, providing insurance products and services to property managers such as tenant liability insurance. Visit them at nationalpropertymanagement.com.
This has been a podcast episode by PropertyManagementProductions.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, leave us feedback, and come back for our next episode.